All right, it is Derek from Woodstock Custom Arcades. I guess I can minimize this. You don't need to see this running. So this video is just to announce that our Arcade 2.0 system is now in its beta phase. So basically what that means is the highest end hard drive, which is going to be on my LE models. I'm starting to sell those to customers now. They're going to be doing some bug testing and beta testing for me, which is why I'm selling them basically at cost. They're going to be letting me know, hey, this is what I would really like to see on future drives, on future machines. Here's some bugs that I found. Hey, can you add this? This is necessary, this is not necessary type of thing. But what this means is moving forward very shortly, I'm going to be completing my catalog. And we are going to be moving to a 3-tier arcade system. It's kind of like my V-Pins. I'm going to have Pro, Premium, and LEs. Basically, the Pro models are going to be as stripped down as they can get. So customers with the lowest entry to price point, lowest price point entry, people who want to spend the least amount of money, they're going to be able to get the machine. It's obviously going to be stripped down from features. I'm going to go through it. I'm kind of going to finalize things. I know one of the things that's going to be missing is a trackball. It may or may not have anything other than a control panel and marquee artwork and stuff like that. Things that I can do to keep the cost down, and therefore things that I can do to lower the price point. I'm going to have a mid-tier model still, which is probably going to be basically exactly what I'm selling now. I'm going to call that kind of like my mid-tier. And then there's going to be the LE model, which is going to have this newer computer system in it, more graphics on the machine. I'm probably going to do it like the pinballs where I have an LE and an LE Plus, which is, hey, here's an LE model that's quote-unquote stripped down, and then here's all the stuff that you can add to it if you want. LED lights and different things like that. I was thinking I was playing around with toppers and different stuff like that. So those things I would probably do as add-ons because they're not necessary and they're just bling, for lack of better words. And again, it's just to keep the price points low and not bloat the price for the customer with stuff that customers don't find beneficial, which is basically how I've been running the business for the last 9 years. Keep costs low so I can keep prices low, and then if customers want more stuff into it, then most of that stuff is going to be at cost upgrades. Hey, throw a $10,000 computer into my machine. Okay, pay me a $10,000 difference, and now you have a $10,000 computer in your system. And that's generally how I work that stuff. So, and you can tell I'm working off a script today because I know my points and what I'm talking about next. Okay, that is the information on the 3-tier arcade systems. Again, I will be launching a catalog at some point, probably once the beta testing is kind of done. Actually, probably before that, because orders will push me to work faster. If I don't have orders, then then I'm going to just keep building my V-Pins for customers. Current systems looking for upgrade. Oh, right. So as of now, I'm kind of launching it just the computer upgrades for customers. And this is going to be mainly for guys who already have one of my arcade systems and want to potentially breathe new life into the system and upgrade. What that's going to do is it's going to upgrade your computer to a much better computer, which allows you to play much better games. Don't take me literally here, but it's basically future-proof and infinitely expandable. Okay, I have always built my systems with a retro focus because that's where the nostalgia is. I remember going to my machine and playing Ninja Turtles at the arcade or the Zellers or whatever it was, and you're playing that and you're standing up in front of your arcade and you're playing on joysticks. And I've always said, no one has ever played PS5 with a gamepad standing in front of an arcade system. That being said, with a lot of these new systems, the new computer components that we're putting in for things that are actually retro focused, like I want to play bigger and better gun games like Jurassic Park and these new games that are coming out. Well, to do that, I need to provide better computers, which obviously increase the cost, but provide better computers, and with those better computers become the option to allow these other games to become available. So by adding game pads, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, by adding game pads and by adding these better computers, you have the ability to play these games, let's say play PS2 games and GameCube and Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, things that have analog N64, things that have analog joysticks that don't play well with the joystick and 6 buttons. Just because you never did play it at an arcade doesn't mean that you can't. So what I'm going to be, and I might be talking about this later, I might be skipping points, but basically what I'm allowing is by having this hardware, I'm going to be setting up, let's call it the bare bones ability for you to do these things. What I probably won't do, and I'll figure this stuff over time, it just becomes, well, I've done it a couple times, let's copy paste it. But my intention is to never, isn't to offer 8 terabyte setups for people so you can play every game imaginable and every system imaginable, because I like to be able to service my customers. And if I just have literally hundreds of thousands of games on hundreds of different systems, it's impossible for me to control anything and be able to service customers effectively and efficiently. And because I basically don't charge any money for the games, it's just spending a lot of time servicing stuff that I don't make any money on. So it just takes time away from building stuff for customers. So I try to do it in a controlled environment. So what I am going to be doing is releasing it. Beta guys are going to be testing it and stuff, and they're saying, hey Derek, I've got the ability to play all these games. I'd really like to add Sega Dreamcast. So then on my system, I'm going to add Sega Dreamcast to it. I'm going to put a game on it. I'm going to download all the media and all that stuff. I'm going to key map it for the customers, and I'm going to create a tutorial video. Here is maybe their torrent files that I found. Here's where you can download all the games, either the entire library or just the game specifically you want. Here's how you add your games to it. Go add the games that you want to add. And then the customers can download in the background because these systems are going to be Wi-Fi enabled. I'm skipping ahead. I'm talking about points I'm going to talk about later. But basically, customers are going to be able to add their own stuff with tutorial videos by me, which is going to facilitate them adding whatever games they want in the future. And I don't have to specifically add and download each specific game for each specific customer. People can pick and choose what they want and add to the system what they want, but now they have the ability to add what they want and play what they want versus just being stick to, let's say, circa year 2000 and older games. So again, as of right now, I'm kind of just in the beta testing phase. I've built the drive, I've built it up. It's at the point where I'm starting to deliver them to customers and stuff, and then they can be testing them. It's open beta for everyone. If you have one of my old machines and you want to upgrade, let me know. Shoot me a message and I can talk to you about what the price breakdown is for the different components. Again, it's all just at cost. You can even buy some of the components yourself if you want. It's just that I can't pre-populate it and configure it ahead of time for you if that's the case. This will be an at-cost upgrade to all existing customers. Age of machine may require... Okay, so depending on your machine, if you bought one of, let's say, my Season 2 machines, I can almost guarantee, even though probably the same number of buttons are on your machine, the buttons are wired differently to your controller boards. The good thing is those controller boards, the wires easily pop in and out of those. So depending on the age of your machine, we might have a conversation. I'm probably going to send you a wiring diagram, but we might be having a one-on-one conversation and just saying, hey, make sure that this button, player 1, button 1 corresponds to controller board slot number 2, and same thing for all your other buttons. So it may involve you pulling out wires on your controller boards and then plugging the wires back in. It's probably 10 minutes of work outside of removing your thing that's underneath your control panel. It's basically tool free, and yeah, 10-15 minutes worth of work. And then the drive should be plug and play for your system. Should be. Again, this is kind of also why it's a beta phase. If an old existing customer is having problems, then at least I know that and then can mention that to other guys that are buying it. But new systems moving forward, someone who's buying a brand new arcade system, it's obviously going to be set up, plug and play, ready to go. They just start playing and stuff like that. Yeah, so now I'm going to talk about the main... Sorry I didn't have something more interesting for you guys to look at. I should have had a video playing in the background versus just a static desktop. I didn't write that in my notes. Hey, have a video going in the background. So, main features of the LE Arcade. So basically, this is the new features... Sorry, not new features of the LE Arcade, but the new features of the LE PC system setup. Number one is that Wi-Fi is enabled. So you can see down here, I'm connected to the internet. Do you need to keep it connected to the internet at all times? Absolutely not. And I would still probably recommend don't, because then Windows does its updates and stuff. And you can see here that I've cloned my drive to myself, which is why it's saying, hey, you've got two computers using the same Windows. Ignore that for now. But with Wi-Fi enabled, we have a whole bunch of stuff that's unlocked to us. And I'll kind of go through those things. So first off, you can keep Windows up to date if that's important to you and stuff like that, which is probably the least most important thing about having Wi-Fi. So a couple things. We now have ability for remote assistance. So this AnyDesk here. So generally after a customer has owned their machine for any length of time, kind of the first month they're calling me, hey Derek, how do I do this? How do I do this? And the answer is always, hey, did you watch the tutorial videos? Did you check your user guide? Most of the answers are done through there. But for customers that are having problems or, hey, I can't get this to work or this is stuck or this is stuck, if there's something that I'm able to help with remotely, oh, I see one of your files got corrupted, or on one of these beta systems, it's going to be, oh, I can see let me fix that on mine and I'm going to copy paste that file over to you. Rather than sending you the email and saying, hey, put it on a thumb drive, bring it over to your arcade, drag and drop it, do this, do this, do this. It's easier for me to just remote onto your computer, drag and drop it myself, test it, make sure it's working, log off your computer, and then you're done and you're updated and upgraded. So that's a key feature about the remote assistance. It didn't exist before. All the remote assistance was literally over the phone, and I'm trying to explain to customers what to click and where they are and all that other stuff. 100% easier. I can now physically log on to your systems and do that myself. Kind of on that note, this OBS Studio, which is literally what I'm recording in this video now, again, isn't necessarily super beneficial to customers, but it's here. I haven't personalized it. It's not hooked up to my my streaming service or anything like that. So I just leave it on there and it's blank, but you can then do exactly what I'm doing. Let's say you're having a problem with the machine and you want to describe it to me before me getting on remote assistance, because then maybe I can track down the issue on my own. You could open up this OBS Studio, you could screen record, and then you could go and play your system and do whatever it is. And then that will allow me to see the errors actually happening, for lack of better words, in real time in a recorded video. This also lets you stream, so if you did want to do online streaming, or you've got kids that are saying, hey, I've got this, I want to create a Twitch channel and play these games on Twitch and stuff like that, this program will let you do it. So it's kind of just a neat feature. I don't have it on this one yet, but I'm going to be adding it. I'm going to add a BitTorrent client on here, so some of my tutorial folders and stuff like that, or the upgrades. So for example, Technoparrot, if a customer wants to go and download a Technoparrot game, instead of me downloading terabytes worth of games and setting up all those games one by one, because maybe someone's going to play it at some point, the customer then has the ability to open up that torrent file. Hey, what arcade game do I want to download? Okay, let's download Street Fighter 3 or something like that. They can download it. Again, because you're already connected to the Wi-Fi, that's available. You have access to the torrent files. So then you have the torrent program. Everything is going to be built into the system. So by watching a tutorial video, you can just click exactly what I'm clicking, go to where I'm going and stuff, and then customers should, for the most part, be able to do everything from the arcade system itself. You don't have to do it on home computers and then thumb drive things over, and especially with large, 4, 8 terabyte games, it's kind of annoying having a thumb drive trying to drag things over. You can just do everything from the arcade system itself. There's also going to be, and I've just messed up my cloud drive. So these links don't even work anymore, or they probably don't. If I click arcade tutorials, yeah, no longer available. So I need to update these links. But long story short, on here, you will automatically have arcade tutorials. So you click that, it goes to my tutorials folder, and it's a cloud drive that's live that I keep updated all the time. Customer might say, hey Derek, I'm trying to add a GameCube game and it's not working. How do I do it? What game are you doing? Sonic Adventure 2. Okay, so I'll download Sonic Adventure 2 from the same source that they did, so we have the same game, and I'm going to say, here's me step by step installing Sonic Adventure 2 into the GameCube thing and showing you how it works, and the controls should basically be set up themselves, and then things should be playing, or the customer might, whatever. I will be able to create personalized tutorial videos, and then I'm going to throw it all in the tutorial video repository so that everyone can see it. And for non-existing customers and stuff, so I have a private Facebook support group for customers and stuff, and they might ask for things in there on the support group. Hey, I'm having problems with this, and then it's kind of live for everyone, and then I would post to the group, hey, if anyone's trying to add Dreamcast games, here's a tutorial video for it. It's now on the tutorial folders. Same thing with arcade updates. Again, this link doesn't work anymore, so who cares that it's being shown? Oh, that is there. Interesting. Okay. This link might change. I know it's going to change. It's going to get deleted anyways. But so here's where I created upgraded PC info. So I'm kind of doing the same information twice, but I showed a customer, hey, here's me clicking on the torrent. Here's me opening the torrent file. Here's me downloading the game. That was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Here's me installing it to Technoparrot. Here's me setting up the joysticks. Here's me doing this. So I go through and then I do a step-by-step tutorial. In the updates folder, there might be links to certain games or updates to software and stuff like that. When we get into these newer gen arcade games, the files are much, much larger. So I probably am not going to be providing the games. It's more going to be providing the links, like we saw in there, a torrent file that says, hey, here's a list of all the Technoparrot games. Just go and click which games you want, when you want them, and you can add games like that. I've said in the past, and I've said on my website, hey, maybe I'm going to try and do like a highlight of like a game of the month. Hey, I'm downloading maybe some Japanese Technoparrot game that no one's ever heard of. Hey, it's really cool. You should check this game out, and then maybe do a video of me doing it and stuff like that. That may or may not happen just because I'm a one-man army, and obviously most of my time is spent building machines. I try to upgrade when I can, but it's also like if customers aren't asking for something, then it's a time value proposition. Well, how much time do I spend doing something that no one's asking for that might provide benefit to a few people? So I may or may not do that if and when other people are building machines for me and stuff like that, and I can spend more time on the R&D, then that's absolutely what I want to be doing with my life moving forward, is just showing updates and keeping people's stuff up to date and releasing new stuff. That's kind of what I want. But as a one-man army, I can only do so much stuff. And as everyone knows, my website is the part that suffers, because it is probably the worst website in history. And I know it, and I own it. What else are we talking about? Main features, remote assistant, discuss cloud updates. Yes, I did all the cloud update stuff. OBS, we talked about that. Perfect. So now that we're down to the nitty gritty, I guess, well, what is different? So yes, it has Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. So I kind of touched base on this previously. So whether you own guns or not, the problem with the guns in the past, at least on new systems, I needed to keep those guns on Windows 7. And the reason I need to keep it on Windows 7 is because Windows 10 and 11 sucked for swapping the controller IDs and just going all over the place with them. So you'd unplug a gun and then all of a sudden your system wouldn't work anymore, or you'd have the guns plugged in and they would load the guns in front of your joysticks and your joysticks would stop working. That has all been solved to the best of my knowledge. I have tested it extensively and I think I've got it locked down. So let's see if I can see this. I don't know what I all have plugged in, but if I open up Joy to Key here, yes, because they're not, well, let's hit a button and turn these on. I'm going to turn one on just to kind of prove my point. Okay, so here we go. Player 1 joystick. I'm wiggling player 1, it's wiggling player 1. I'm wiggling player 2, it's doing player 2. Player 3 I have, so for anyone who has a 4-way dedicated only, this is a 2-player setup, by the way, that I'm on. So anyone who has a 4-way only dedicated third joystick, I have that locked off so that when you wiggle joystick 3, that will show here and it doesn't muck with any of this stuff after. You could see before that this just said joystick 4, joystick 5, and then these kind of say gun 1 and gun 2. I turned on a joystick, a gamepad, and then all of a sudden it turned to Nintendo Switch Pro Controller. Well, it didn't pop in on slot number 2 or slot number 1. It didn't go in between the guns. The guns are still 6 and 7, so the controller IDs are locked. If I hit a button on my left gun, where are my guns? It should highlight joystick 6, I believe, and it does. There's gun 7, and it does. I'm going to turn on my other gamepad, right? And now it says, hey, I noticed that's a Nintendo Switch controller, right? So there's my 2 gamepads, and if I do the guns, that's still locked on 6, that's still locked on 7, this is still locked on 1, and that's still locked on 2. I did this live, and I didn't screw up, and the system didn't screw up, so it's pretty rock solid. That could have been embarrassing, but luckily it wasn't. Yeah, so I'm fairly confident that whether you have, and watch, let's turn one of these joysticks off. Okay, that joystick's off. We saw that one of those disappeared. I'm going to hit this button. That still says 4. That still says 6. That still says 7. Joystick 5 now disappeared, but that's kind of on pause for that game controller to slide back into once it turns on. So there's a little bit of, and I don't know if it matters, if it really matters, especially if you get game pads that are the same color, but like joystick 1 is joystick 1, but then you load the other gamepad, then all of a sudden that swaps and that becomes player 1. You literally just hand the controller beside you to the other guy. That seems like a non-issue. That could be a me thing. I don't know if that's worth fixing, because who cares? You just swap the controllers in your hand. Not a big deal. Yeah, but because this is now rock solid, again, you can have a joystick that went dead or a battery that went dead. Doesn't affect your system. You can unplug one of the guns. Doesn't affect your system. So we don't have to worry about that, which was a huge issue, and it was the main reason I didn't do gamepads, because customers would say, hey, I want to play a Nintendo game or you know, a Dreamcast game or GameCube that needs the analog stick, and they'd plug in a controller. Well, then that controller likely would bump into player number 1 slot, and then player number 1 would move over. But now when I try to hit player 1, button 1, which I can't because it's highlighted, there you can see it now. Well, that is now attached to the joystick or the gamepad. So then everything is moved, and now Joy to Key doesn't work, and now none of your arcade buttons work, and now you think the thing is broken. No more. This fixes the problem. One thing that I realized I didn't do, and I might, well, I will in the future, it just depends how quickly I do it. This will also allow, then I will have it set up. We can see that there's nothing here. But when these are plugged in, then MAME will pick them up as player 3 and player 4. Again, the players might get swapped depending which ones are installed. Not a big deal. Long story short, the gamepads will work. But now, if you wanted, you could play 4-player Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and 2 players will be on the arcade, and then you can have, you know, 2 guys, girls, whatever, on the left and right of you with their gamepads, and they can still play with you, and you could, in theory then, have 4 players playing on a 2-player machine. 2 players are obviously just not going to be playing arcade style. They're playing it on a gamepad, but it works. So that is a huge, huge, huge thing, and it only took me 9 years how to figure that out and make it rock solid. And I can now do this on Windows 10, Windows 11 systems, which then allow for all these other programs, new programs to work and stuff like that. So we can see what it adds. So like PlayStation 2 now exists. Did I put a ton of stuff on here? No, because at the moment it's only a 1 terabyte hard drive, and I just wanted to get it so that, yes, it works. I know it works. I know we can add new games. We can add new games to it if we want. If customers want to add more games, I have tutorial videos on here's how you plug in a secondary hard drive. You know, you can go and get a 4 terabyte SSD if you want or something like that. And then you can just, here we go, Hyperspin ROMs PS2, add folder, E drive, ROMs PS2, and then go and, you know, fill that entire thing with PS2 ROMs if you want. So it's expandable. You don't need to spend all the money to buy a 5 terabyte primary NVMe drive. You can buy a 1 terabyte, and then you can go and upgrade it by adding a secondary SSD and just fill it, or multiple SSDs, whatever you want. SSDs are super easy to install. It takes all of 15 seconds, and they're basically endlessly expandable. So that's why I did it that way. Sega Dreamcast, GameCube, I put Saturn on here. So I was trying to look at some games that have, or systems that have, let's say, larger libraries in terms of file size. And put a couple games on there to show that they work and to show that they're running. PC games, now that there's a better computer in here with better video graphics and stuff, you can start putting on better arcade games. Non-arcade games, PC games. So I've got Contra Galuga, which is a fairly new game that just came out. Not overly graphically intensive, but I've got stuff like that on there. So you should be able to install new games. I don't know a lot about Steam. I'm sure you could set up your Steam library on this and connect it to your Steam library. That's never something I'm going to do, so I can't really ever support it, but is it physically capable of doing it? Absolutely. So you can import your Steam library into here, set it up with your most likely gamepads, but potentially also with your joysticks. You're probably going to want to play Steam games on a gamepad, though. Nintendo WiiWare, So you can probably also add Nintendo Wii on here. I don't know what the limit is for these computers. They're endlessly expandable. Go put in a $1,200 GPU if you want, and then play all your newest games on it. Is it necessary? No, so I didn't. They're AMD and they are integrated. However, the AMD integrated graphics, I think benchmark the same around an NVIDIA 1060. Don't quote me on that, but I've ran every Technoparrot I wanted to throw at it. Maybe one ran slow. Like everything else runs completely fine. Like I said, it's doing Contra Operation Beluga, which is a game that came out in March. It's playing it absolutely fine with no extra graphics card added. The computer is set up. I will double check for people. It's got a 600 or 750 watt GPU, PSU, power supply. So if you want, go buy a $400 4060 if you want, and just click it in and plug in the monitor, and you're done. So that's why I was saying it's endlessly upgradable if customers want. It can be basically upgraded to future-proof. Sorry, not to future-proof, to current date GPUs and stuff like that, given the hardware that's already in there. It's brand new AMD processor and stuff like that. So it's all current. It doesn't have a GPU in it. It has an integrated GPU, but that integrated GPU works better than a lot of low-end GPUs. So we don't need to add extra money just to play this. But if you wanted, I don't even know if PS4 emulation exists. PS3, I've never tested. I haven't tested PS3 on this. Could PS3 run with this integrated? That may or may not be pushing the limits, but maybe. I can test it. I don't exactly know. Yeah, the others, so then those are for old console systems. The main thing I think that people will be spending a lot of time on is Technoparrot. Why does this look all weird? Can I make this bigger? Cool, okay. Is probably going to be Technoparrot. So Technoparrot is an arcade emulator, but it emulates arcade games mainly, as you can see, post-2000, whereas MAME and some of the other emulators are for early 2000 and older. And with this, basically, so we can see these blue games are ones I've added. I've only really added games that are shooters, so for the light guns. But anything that's blue I've added, but we can see all these white ones, and I haven't added any of them. Right? Some of these are racing, and I downloaded, or I'm setting them up so that I can set up the racing simulator, which will happen at some point eventually. But let's say there's someone that really likes Shining Force. I don't even know what that is. I don't know. It's a game about girls in short skirts, maybe. I don't know. I don't mean to offend anyone. I don't know what this game is. But then I have a tutorial video that says, hey, if you want to download this game, here's the file to download it. You can download the game. You can install the game. You can set up the key mapping for it. I've got a tutorial for everything. And then now you've added that game to your system. And every single one of these are games that you can download and you can add to your system. Puck off that subscription. Yeah, I don't know what that is. These ones that say subscription, they eventually come off subscription, but that just means unless you have a Patreon license, you can't play it for free. But all these other ones are basically free if they don't have subscription beside it. Seems like there's a lot of Japanese titles. Again, I don't spend a ton of time in here, but I will probably moving forward. And if I was going to do a game of the month, it's probably going to be from here. I'm going to say, hey, this Mock Storm, this looks pretty cool, and I'm going to download it, and I'm going to show how to download it, and that's going to go into my tutorial or my update folder. I'm going to have the link for it and say, hey, if you want to add this to your system, here's me adding it to my system, and then I'm going to show me playing it, and then people can say, hey, that looks like a really cool game. Justice League, what is it called? And remember, some of these games are also made for PC, so just because they're locked on here, it doesn't mean you can't. Injustice was one of them. Injustice. So right now it's currently locked on a subscription. This is a DC fighting game. You can play, Batman versus Joker and Mortal Kombat style beat 'em up and stuff. That's also available on PC, so if you own it or if you want to pirate a game, you can download that game and you can also play it. Or you can wait for this to come off Patreon and then you can download it here, which is, for lack of better words, also pirating. Like, these are all games that cost money and you're getting them for free. So whether you pirate it from PC or you pirate it from the arcade company, it's doing the same thing, I guess. Yeah, so this, I'm gonna guess based on looking on it, I don't know. Let's call it an extra 100 arcade games that are post year 2000, that are newer, that people are gonna want to play, and they can add them to their system. But what is the point of downloading Batman, which is a racing car game, when you don't have a racing wheel? So just don't download that. What's the point of downloading Big Buck Hunter if you don't have guns on your system? Well, then don't waste your time downloading that game and setting it up and taking up the hard drive space so that you can't get other games because you don't play that or can't play that anyways. So that's the pro and con with this, or the pro, I should say, is that pro and con. I'm not downloading every single game in existence and setting them up for you. However, I will, if a customer asks me and just say, hey, you've never set up this system before, I will do a bunch of the laid work for you. Go on your system, drag and drop it, or upload it to the uploads folder in a way that everyone can drag and drop it onto their system, update their joy to key settings, this, because everyone is kind of going to be on the same standard. And then you can go and download whatever games you want. And I think that's basically it. I think that is it. That talks about all the different things that the new system is going to allow you to do. Again, the perks, basically infinitely expandable. You want to play new games, you can download new games. You want to play arcade titles, you can play new arcade titles. You want to play new PC game titles, you can play new PC game titles. If the PC game titles you really want to play on here, and for some reason not on your gaming PC, you can add even more of a GPU if you want. I don't think that's how these systems are going to go. Honestly, if you're doing that, you're probably having a gaming system set up for PC gaming in your, your living room or whatever it is, and you're doing all that stuff. It's mainly still for arcade. Again, it's still a retro-focused arcade, but because you have all these hardware updates, you have the ability to play these new games if you want. Every single one of these games, by the way, I'm going to assume, I shouldn't say every, but the bulk of these are all arcade titles that were built on standalone arcade machines. So I don't think any of these arcade machines had wireless game pads attached to them. So there was some sort of hardware that you physically touched and did stuff with. I don't know what Spider-Man would be or how exactly you play this one. There are some things, again, maybe they had specific hardware to them. So let's say for Terminator, for example, there's a gun. Without that gun, are you going to be shooting much? Not really. You can set up those gun games on your gamepad, though, as far as I know. I don't know how the aiming works, but you can shoot. You can set it up to your mouse, and you can click guys if you want. Remember, the arcade is trying to emulate hardware into software. There's some hardware that it just won't. So with Spider-Man has some sort of hardware that this can't emulate somehow. It might be hard to work, but other than that, all these Technoparrot ones should work with your arcade stick and 6 buttons for the most part. Some of them you might install a mouse for, some of them you might use your gamepad, but all these are going to be games that you can play with your joystick and 6 buttons, most likely without the use of a gamepad. PC games or console games, you are most likely going to be using the gamepad moving forward for the newer gen stuff, because you can't really play N64 with a joystick. You need the analog stick to control 360 degrees of motion and the speed of which you're doing it, 0 to 100 versus just 0 and 100, which is what an analog clicky click stick gives you. Yeah, so that's probably long enough. That's what the video is. That's the new information on these systems. Again, for existing customers, if you want one of these systems, give me a shout. It's in beta mode, which means you're not really paying anything extra for it, paying the cost of the system and stuff like that, plus a couple extra bucks. When I go and I bury this in the system for an Arcade 2.0, and here's my LE model, and it's a $15,000 arcade machine, that's when I'm going in and I'm padding all the work where it's, hey, it's a new computer and it's new this and it's new that, and charge a markup for it and stuff like that. But as of now, there's not really any markup on this system. You've already paid me. You've already bought a system. I just want you to still get more future use out of it and still love the system like when you bought it. If you want to upgrade, the upgrades are here and they're basically at cost. If you have a gaming PC that will play this stuff, as long as it has an NVMe drive, I can go and just give you the hard drive versus the whole computer and stuff. Whatever you want. Because again, I'm just selling the stuff at cost. So here's what I paid for the computer, pay me this, you get the computer. Here's what I paid for the game pads, pay me for the game pads. That's it. Yeah, that is the end of the video. Thanks everyone for watching. And once this, well, I'm probably going to do it before then, but again, I'm going to actually launch my 2.0 system, so my Pro Premium and LE machines. No one is going to be buying brand new arcades from me that already has one. You're probably just going to get an update, but people moving forward, new customers in the future, they will then be able to choose, hey, what model of system do I want? You know, small, medium, large type of thing. Yeah, just like with the V-Pins. And that is it for now. Thanks, everyone.